Hello, I am 002 from Desk Authority. I'm just going to do a quick video on how to take apart a Topre Realforce keyboard. This one's a Japanese layout board, but they're pretty much the same with the exception of the spacebar. Okay, so first things first, flip the board over. So Topre keyboards don't actually have any screws holding them together, so there's no screw hidden under that sticker there, there's none under there, so really all you need is your hands. Basically all you need to do is start from, doesn't really matter which side, you basically start unclipping these 4 tabs along the bottom edge here. So basically if you don't even really need fingernails, as you can see I don't have very long ones. Just basically push the tab towards, or pull the tab towards yourself until it sort of clips. It'll be pretty obvious when it unhinges from the bottom of the case, and just work your way across the keyboard like that. That's really it. Once you've done that, you basically can flip the board back over, and when you lift the top of the edge of the case, basically just comes off. Occasionally it'll get sort of stuck, it'll feel like it's stuck at this height here. All you need to do then is just pull it towards yourself a little bit so it unhinges the hooks that clip onto the top edge of the case. So put that away. Okay, so once you've got this, once you've got the enclosure separated, basically just lift from the edges. I usually just put my fingers under the keys there and lift it up away from yourself, from the bottom, and underneath, you might be able to see that, underneath there is you'll see the cable connects to the PCB. You basically just lift it up like that and just unhook that. It's pretty, there's no clips or anything that you need to press, you just pull it straight out, and there we go. That's the first part of taking apart a Realforce. Once you've done that, you basically flip the PCB and mounting plate over, and this is the fun part of removing the myriad of screws that Topre use. So there's a lot of black screws here. They go through I can't actually remember. Oh, they don't actually affix to the mounting plate. They go between the gaps between each of the switches. So you start with those ones, and then the metal screws, sorry, the silver screws that are left are the ones that actually screw directly onto the plate. So go ahead, and I'm using a 5mm screwdriver here, Phillips head, and yeah, start with all the black screws and then we'll go from there. Okay, my apologies. So basically, after removing the black screws, you pretty much just go ahead and remove the silver screws as well. The reason I sort of separated those two is because there is an alternative method where you can basically hold the board with the keycaps facing upwards like this, and then you would start unscrewing the silver screws. That's for people who prefer to separate the mounting plate while the PCB's while the keys are facing up. I actually prefer to remove the PCB while everything is facing down like this. I find it a lot easier. So go ahead and remove the silver screws, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so once you've taken all the silver screws out, you'll probably find that if you've got it upside down like I do here, that the mounting plate will just fall away from the PCB. So at this stage, you basically just lift the PCB away from the mounting plate and just kind of pay attention, like see if you can look underneath, or sorry, between the PCB and the mounting plate to see what the rubber domes are going to do, because Sometimes they're stuck to the PCB and they don't really move, and which is like what it looks like it's going to happen with this one. Other times the rubber domes will fall away from the PCB quite easily, and you just got to keep your eye on springs that will fall away. So they tend to be very bouncy and difficult to find if you drop them on the floor. So I've been very lucky here. You can see there's only a single dome there that has come away from the PCB. This is a variable force keyboard, meaning that the keys on the outside are lighter than the keys in the center. It's ergonomic. It's basically supposed to be ergonomic. Some people don't like it. I don't really mind it. It's better if you touch type, I think. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. If the domes come away from the PCB, which I will demonstrate, I can show you how to resolve that, and the best way to do it, in my opinion, is once again with everything facing down, with the keycaps facing down. So I will remove the dome sheet and we'll have a quick look underneath. I'll sort of peel it back. It's kind of stuck there, not with glue or any sort of residue, I don't think, although some people are suggesting that there is. Can't really see anything. So yeah, you can see that the dome sheet is peels away pretty easily, and if you're very careful, you can have the springs sort of sit in their intended positions. Although I'm starting to come unstuck there. Yeah, I mean, this is, you wouldn't really want to be doing this unless you were doing like a dome swap, where you would be converting a variable force keyboard into a uniformly weighted keyboard, like 45 grams or 55 grams, or vice versa. So yeah, that's the dome sheet removed. It's pretty simple, and all the springs. So at this point, you do what you want. You can cut the domes to rearrange them to have a uniform board or whatever. You can do that with the NovaTouch 10 keyless keyboard as well. I'm told that you can just switch the domes out if you wanted a variable force or 55 gram force NovaTouch, for example. So yeah, that's pretty much it. In a moment I'll show you how to put it all back together. Okay, so putting everything back together, as you can see, I've sort of put the PCB aside there, very carefully lifted it away. All the springs are still in their intended places on the PCB. So what I like to do is raise the mounting plate up, and I'm doing that with the very high-tech Jenga blocks, using two either side of the mounting plate just to hold it up off the desk, because if you don't, when you put the dome sheet in, the keycaps will be pushing up against the dome sheet and it won't sort of fit down in there nicely. So once you've lifted, or you could use books or something, I guess, lifted the mounting plate, you just basically place the dome sheet in like that. Just adjust to make sure they're all sitting in there nicely. These single domes, the trick is to just have a look at the switch housings, and you'll notice that there's basically little notches in either side of the switch, which actually allow for the black screws to pass between them when they're sitting side by side like that. So you basically align the notches in the single domes with the notches on the switch housings. It doesn't really matter which way they're facing. Like that. Should sit in there nicely. Once you've done that, you basically just take all the springs and put them in their in their spots. Yep, so go ahead and do that, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so that's probably the most time-consuming part of the process. So once all the screws are back, the springs are back in, you can basically put the PCB back on and start putting it all back together. Before I do that, I'll just give you a couple of tips. You might be concerned about the springs being different weights. They're not. So basically, if you are worried about the spring going directly back into the position that it was where it was originally, you don't really need to worry about that because they all weigh the same. They've all got the same amount of force required. So it's actually the rubber domes that control the weight of the switch. Another thing is, if you can't find a spring for whatever reason, you think you've lost it, occasionally the springs will fall in with each other like that, and it's pretty hard to tell. You basically need to scan each of the springs carefully and look at the ones that are kind of reflecting the most light. I found it's the easiest way. They do like to find their way into each other. So yeah. Another thing is, you probably want to readjust your Jenga blocks or whatever solution you've used to raise the mounting plate before you put the PCB back on, in case you've kind of moved it around during the process, because if it falls out, the springs are going to just bounce out all over the place. So yeah, once that's done, you basically take your PCB and line it back up with the springs like so. Basically, I like to just look through the standoffs on the so the standoffs are these copper ones here, or brass, I'm not sure, but that's where the silver screws go into. The black screws go in between the switches, as mentioned earlier. So that's basically all you have to do. Set it back on like that, and start with the silver screws, then the black screws, and then yeah, just reverse what I've shown you basically to put it back together. That's pretty much it. Thanks.